Those of you who don't know, I am Nanette Christ, and I'm introducing our speaker for today, Susan Thomas. Susan is one of the pastors at the Fellowship of the Inner Light, joined in 1973 and worked with Paul Solomon in the fellowship since that time. She also has a background in music and music education, and she used to perform in the Virginia Symphony as well. Now she focuses on teaching children in a holistic way, and she teaches them a variety of instruments that are mostly stringed instruments. We have had the pleasure of hearing Susan's wonderful compositions and voice on Sundays here. She always amazes me with what she comes up with, particularly with the violin and the piano. Susan is a minister also in the Order of Melchizedek and has carried on that ministry in many different ways. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Susan better in recent months, and I can tell you she is one of the most devoted and sincere seekers and teachers I have known. I hope now that you'll join me in welcoming Susan as she presents You Matter.
Just a little bit. Thank you so much, Nanette. And Chris, that song said it all, really. We could just go home now. But you know, the human brain likes to receive information so it can filter into all the levels. And therefore, I'll provide a few words to lead us in that same direction. And I'd like to start with just a small moment of prayer to bring us all together. We are together, and I just want a little prayer. Source of our being, love all that there is living in us, through us, and as us. Bless us as we sit here and commune together, and bless us as a message comes through. Amen. So what occurred to me when I was offered this speaking this Sunday was how important it is for all of us to know that we matter. When I visit my mother in the nursing home, you see the elderly sitting very out of it in their wheelchairs, sometimes looking lonely, dejected, and wondering if they matter. It's a human situation that we all deal with. It's part of the school of this plane. And I want to say, this side of the room matters. Even you, Chris. And this side of the room matters. I matter. We matter. When you were born, spirit joined into matter. And somebody was happy about that. Your Creator was happy about that. Sending you here for the experience of life, for learning, but not just learning. It's what you have to receive and give from the earth. And for you to continue in the evolution of learning what love really is and how to love yourself, others, and source with unconditional love. All of life matters, and in fact right now we often see signs, that say Black Lives Matter, policemen matter, white lives matter. It's because people are struggling to be recognized that they matter, and they're having trouble giving that to themselves. And that's the crux of the issue. If we can't love ourselves, we can't receive love, or we can't know that it's there and embody it. And so it's an ongoing journey. My daughter Jennifer, when she was 3 years old, came up to me and said, "Mommy, the ants have a life, they matter. I'll be very careful not to step on them." And from the mouths of babes, it reminds us, doesn't it? And I know, Jessica, you work with kids. You probably hear things all the time. And you take it home and go, wow, both the humor and the wisdom that comes through the little ones. And Glenda Anderson, one of our ministers, ran a Montessori school. And Jennifer was there. And Glenda told me she would go out at recess with a little notebook and a pencil and sit under a tree by where ants were. And she didn't write all these numbers and things yet, right? She put a mark for each one she saw. She was trying to keep track of them and to make sure they were okay. And that really touched me very, very, very much. And another Mouths of Babes, the same child, Jennifer, and my daughter Leah gave many, but Jennifer's applied to today, when Leah was 4 years old, Billy was taking care of her, and I was at the grocery store. And she needed a snack even before I got back, so he said, well, what about a peanut butter sandwich, Jenny? And she didn't look too enthused. And he tried to build it up. He said, and he talked about the characters children read in books in those days and saw on TV. He said, it'll make you powerful, like Supergirl. She went, Daddy, that's not power. And he said, well, like Superman. And she kept naming all those hero characters, and she kept saying, that's not power. And he said he finally dared to ask her, well, what is power, Jenny? She goes, silly Daddy, power is imagination. And then, for some reason, she proceeded to talk about the 7 ages of the world and concern we're in the 5th age. And he said, should I be writing this down? And then she popped back like just normal and ate the sandwich and said, well, Mom's cooking's better, but I'll eat the sandwich. So that always struck me, because how many times were you told as a child, it's just your imagination, even by well-meaning people. But if you can imagine something, it's real. And it can manifest. So we'll be using some of that today. You have the power of imagination. And please never make yourself wrong for imagining. And encourage the children to continue to do that. It is a vital tool in expressing and in living. So we have this seemingly eternal search for identity. And identity crisis causes war. Wars are fought because people have pathologies in the path to look for what matters and their identity. Some organizations or countries will say, my country matters, yours doesn't. Or I matter, you don't. Or I matter, but you don't think that I do, and therefore they'll do love substitutes to get attention. And so that's why they told us in school, for every story you have to have a protagonist and an antagonist, to keep it interesting, to have that interesting drama for plays, movies, and stories. But maybe we should change that paradigm. You don't have to have an antagonist. And most of it's in our own self anyway, right? Our self-talk, the battle with the angels, and the bipolar, the brain halves. So I think, people, we know this through history, people have gone, they've made people wrong to make themselves right, is what so often has been the pathology. But in the middle of all this, most souls, most people have had moments of touching the hem of the garment, of actually feeling unconditional love. But it's real hard to stay in it in the daily life on earth, and figuring out how to respond instead of react, and all of those things that everybody in this room studies. But some things bear repeating to remind us. Today, I'm reminding myself and everybody that we do matter. And from an older Mouths of Babes, Lizelle Crowley's son, when he was a teenager, wore a t-shirt here. And on the back of it, it spoke of his search for identity. It was so hilarious, and I actually remember this. It said, I'm out trying to find myself. If I should get back before I return, will you please have me wait? So it plays with your brain, like, whoa, what just happened? And so it can be a circuitous route. And I think you all agree, because you think you know something about somebody else or yourself, and then you find out, whoa, no, it's changed, it's shifted, or my understanding of it. And what we do, our struggles don't define our identity. Our past does not define our identity. Those are very important ones, I think. And one of the hardest things that we deal with is our emotions. And I think, it occurred to me this week, it's time to stop fearing emotions and see them as helpful symptoms. Paul Solomon used to say, true health is your body's ability to give you a symptom in the body so that you know to do something about it, to take an action that helps. Well, when you get an emotion and it's a negative one, that's also a symptom of, whoops, got to take a look at this, figure it out. And it's just an energy. And I want to read you the definition, the original definition of the word emotion. This was from a dictionary, and it said in the 1570s, the definition in English of emotion was moving, stirring, action, agitation. And from the Middle French, émotion, and from Old French, émouvoir, it meant stir up. Simply move, stir up. Nothing, everything's energy, and nothing can stay stagnant. So if we're living in these experiential units on the earth, there's always energy, and we have to figure out where to put it or how to move it. And especially people tend to fear anger. There's a man named Bashar who says anger is just an energetic tool. It gives us information and direction if you explore it with wisdom. In and of itself, it is a positive emotion. Who would have thought? It allows you to clarify and align yourself with what you know yourself to be. So that's something to think about. Because sometimes, as soon as we feel anger, we make ourselves wrong, and that just makes it worse. So we all have our ways of time out, take a walk, cool off, and then make a decision. And because everyone in this room works with so many tools, including the 9 steps in inner light consciousness for emotional happiness, I think a lot of us, and just living longer, we gain tools. Now we can feel a negative emotion and let it go in 5 minutes instead of 5 hours, or 5 hours instead of 5 days. So we've all evolved with this. But if we could really look at it as, don't make it wrong to begin with, but then what's what you do with it? Because any tool can be used or misused. Even on the earth plane, you must have water to live. You're made up of mostly water, but you can drown in it. That's just an example of, there's a negative, positive of almost everything. Sides of the coin and use of the tools. So just wanted to do some encouragement on that. And in the search for identity and how in this constant, throughout history, all the millions of souls that have come here looking for who am I, where do I fit with things, who am I really, sometimes some very poignant stories come our way. This one came to me this week, a true story that has sometimes been used in film or television program. I think there was one television program. It's a true story that took place during World War II. And it's a story of an American and a German pilot. And the American and the German pilot were both in the air at the same time, having just had battles and lost friends and jets going down and just everything, and they both got the signal to go home, to return to base. And they were flying in the same airspace almost, side by side, but they were way up in an elevation, and they had masks on, and then they were taking their masks off, and they looked to the side and saw each other. And bear in mind, there's a Nazi emblem on one of them, and the other's American. They were about the same age. Their eyes met. They just looked at each other. And in that moment, they saluted each other. And the German realized that the American was going the wrong direction. If he kept going there, he'd be dead. He'd be shot down. So he motioned to him. And because of that moment of how the eyes met, the American trusted him, turned around and went safely home to base, continued to have his life, and had children who helped a lot of people. Well, the story doesn't end there. This man ended up moving to America, the German, eventually. And by a sequence of events, the American met him again. And so they continued their correspondence. And in the latter days of the German man's life, he was on his deathbed in hospice. The American pilot caught up with him and went to him. And he was asked, "Why did you save your enemy?" He said, In the air, we're all brothers. We're the same. I was fighting a war I was given no physical choice over, and it was not my ideology. And I killed people, and I'm having trouble forgiving myself for that. And I wanted one moment of being who I really am, and to be reminded of who I really am. And the American helped the man to forgive himself for the other stuff before he died. That's powerful, isn't it? It speaks volumes of what we all feel about when you take the identity crisis that far and it becomes war. So I think it's important for us not to make ourselves wrong either, that we're not, quote, perfect. Is there anyone here that hasn't had a moment where they went, whoops, that didn't work, back to the drawing board? If you think of yourself like a little toddler learning to walk, if they fall down, do you berate them? You help pick them up and let them know it's okay. And that's what we need to do for ourselves at all ages. And constantly work with the forgiveness that Chris sang about. What I'm going to do right now is have us do a little meditation. So get comfortable in your seats. And we'll do, during part of this meditation, I will guide you, actually for most of it, with an excerpt, actually, from a reading that was done by Paul Solomon. I doubt anyone except Lloyd who remembers all numbers. I don't care which number it is, but it is actually reading number 9371. And these are excerpts that are I find very helpful, whether I'm reading them or meditating with them. So I want to share that with you today and let you have that experience. And then I'll start by just ringing the Tibetan bells to bring us there. Go with the sound within. Relax in your chair. Breathe comfortably, naturally, deeply. And then I'll lead you through this and back out with the bells before I do the rest of the talk, that brings us to a closing. Jesus the Christ said, "Ye are gods, and sons of the Most High, sons and daughters of the Most High." Sometimes you forget or you fall down. You were always loved. You must understand that at this point in your life, you have become the parent. And you need to begin to see every cell of your body as a child. You're a child. All of these children, each microscopic cell of your body has consciousness. And like a child needs nourishment, strength, and understanding. Do not doubt for a moment that all cells in your body are thinking cells, are memory cells. They are learning cells. They have wisdom. They have consciousness. They have cell memory. Treat them as little children and begin to practice even now speaking to each portion of your body, whether at the cell level or at the level of body systems, whether of nervous system, circulatory system, the brain, the eyes, and the ears. All portions of your body need to be talked to deliberately, for self-talk continues always unconsciously and remains unconscious until you take control of it. You need another step to take control of it effectively. You must understand that the ultimate parent, the highest self, the super consciousness, or Christ in you, is also a living being within you who is by nature pure living love. Then you must claim this presence, this being, as your divine parent, your father and mother within yourself and your body. Begin to speak to this presence, the divine presence in you, and ask that this presence daily teach you self-love, self-worth, self-appreciation, self-esteem, confidence, and strength. This will give you the strength to overcome the past so that you will have confidence with which to speak to others who have encountered similar experiences. Fill yourself with love, confidence, appreciation, and praise. Praising yourself, encouraging yourself, and ridding your mind of self-criticism. Take away from your consciousness that portion that is the imposed parent within you, which is critical and blaming, which scolds you inside yourself. Replace this with an encouraging, strong parent who comes from living love within you. And remind yourself often, talking with yourself often, remind yourself that you are strong and you are deserving of the love which made you, the love of your source. Gain the strength and confidence to set out on your own, complete and whole, not left available at the hands of anyone who would fail to respect you in the highest manner. For too often, with such a pattern as some of you were given in early life, you can become addicted to and dependent upon others who agree with the early assessment that was made. From your own sense of a lack of worth, you may communicate to others that you lack worth, and they're more likely, from their place of not feeling worthy, to abuse you, verbally or even physically. Set yourself apart from these and teach others to respect you with love, the love that you and all people deserve. You must believe this in yourself first. Practice talking with yourself, reassuring yourself of your value. Practice listening to the Christ within, listening to the source, which will reassure you of your value until you feel loved and valued from within, until you gain the strength to separate yourself from anyone who does not see and respect that value. Forgive self and others. Forgiving is not forgetting. It is remembered without anger. Remembering without anger. It frees up your power, heals your body, mind, and spirit. It opens a pathway to a new place of peace where you can persist despite what has happened to you. Your struggles are not your identity. You are you. You are valuable, and you are spirit in everything you do, waking, sleeping, playing, working. All work is valuable. One is not more valuable than another. Embrace yourself and allow this love, this unconditional love that goes even beyond these words, to enter into you on all levels. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And remember, you are not alone. Now wiggle your toes and your hands and open your eyes when you're ready. And I'm going to ask you to turn to a neighbor and just say to them, you matter and you are loved. You can find somebody in here and remind them of that. The exchange of that energy ripples out, probably 100 miles. And when you speak that truth, doesn't it feel good? I see the countenance of everybody brightening up, because the truth has been spoken. The truth has been realized. And it's something you can carry with you and remind yourself when you get ready to be, frazzled and that guy cut you off in traffic or whatever. You know, the daily stuff. And yeah, the dog's happy over there too. The dog's feeling the love.
Black dogs matter.
I have one more little funny thing that came my way. Somebody, I don't remember who, posted this on Facebook. And I want, you know how usually people say, how are you? And everybody's in a hurry, we're on the treadmill. Fine, you just say fine. Or, you know, they say, what have you been up to? And you just go, oh, busy working, busy, you know, typical answers, even though they're well meant and they're positive. Well, this one person said this is what they'd like to say when somebody says, what have you been up to? So this person's answer, oh, just, you know, redesigning my DNA, freeing self of ancestral trauma, mastering my soul lessons, you know, cultivating space for the abundance flow that I am. so I just found that very fun and true. We're all in the same boat, aren't we? Same school. Same school. No, it wasn't. I don't know where it originally came from, or I would give credit, you know, to that and who wrote it. But and at the end it says, and giving thanks for it all. So I think what will help all of us is if you enjoy the journey. Not just the goal. Have some fun along the way, right? Take some time out of, you know, have some fun. Because it enlivens you back to who you really are. Just one little small mention, but one of the most gossiped about and maligned people in history was Jesus Christ. He was misinterpreted, misunderstood, maligned, terribly treated, right? Is that who he is? No. So any way that you've mistreated yourself or been mistreated, is that who you are? No. And our elder brother, Jesus, he wanted to be there for us and show us that that wasn't the way, right? And encourage us. So I remind myself of that because, and in the immortal words of Mel Dove from the Fellowship, he used to say, what somebody else thinks of me is none of my business. And that's the truth. What I think of myself is none of my business, you know, if I'm being negative, right? I mean, you have to, it's all about letting go, isn't it? And it sounds so simple, but sometimes our adult brains have to complicate it to get it. I remember Paul used to say that, remember that? Yeah. So I say we go forth and enjoy the journey. And remember to remind yourself and each other that you matter, that all people matter, all living beings matter, the earth matters, and that you are loved. And even when you don't feel it, if you say it enough, it starts to sink in. Right? So thank you very much, and let's continue the journey together, armed with we matter and we're loved. We matter and we're loved.